fair enough. The bags of cash going to political parties. Yeah, now we'll come back to that. But here's the point, that in a way, when you hear the carping that we've seen in some opinion pieces online and so on, I mean, for the rest of India to hear those who earn above a crore cribbing about paying, let's say, a couple of lakhs extra per year, it just sounds like elitism of the worst order. Yet when I was reading what you were writing, you were saying this is a terrible idea. Why is it a terrible idea?
See, I think it makes gives you a warm fuzzy feeling that we're taking money from the extremely rich people and giving it to somebody else and redistributing the wealth. But I think we must understand, why did we get here in the first place? I think we've seen a regime of over almost the entire duration of the UPA government's term. Sachin Pilot is here, but I must say this, but we've seen huge fiscal irresponsibility. Huge fiscal irresponsibility. The money has been spent on all sorts of things in a highly irresponsible way, leading to a point where you have to figure out where do you get more money to fund whatever the government is doing.
Yeah.
Even in this budget, expenditure has increased, and people are saying this is about fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
Expenditure is growing at a faster rate. So I think we've reached a point where they're trying to look for ways to fund this kind of money. And you'll find some very well-sounding phrases to justify their expenditure. You know, education cess is one of them.
Yeah.
We pay 3% education cess because education is important. And everybody says, yeah, education is important, so we must pay 3% tax. It's worth giving money for a primary education. The question is, what is the government doing with the tax which it gets?
Yeah.
You spend the first 100% of your tax revenues on all sorts of things, and then say, oh, you know, education is the most important thing, so give 3% more. Now you say, you know, there are 42,800 people who earn more than a crore. Please, pay your fair share of your responsibility. I think we've got to look at it, take a step back and realize that what are our priorities, right? If education is important, let's fund that first, and then find out.
Let me take that to Sachin. The difference between the surcharge and your corporate social responsibility bill, and I think Adi made this point also, is that in one, the person who's being taxed doesn't get to decide where his or her money is going. In the other, at least the company has the right or the prerogative to decide how they want to spend the money. Now, in other words, somebody may look at your government and say, hang on, for your fiscal inefficiency, I don't mean your Sachin, but the government's fiscal inefficiency or incompetence, the taxpayer is having to pay higher. And maybe there are better reasons to tax the rich, but not incompetence.
You know, all this talk about economics and fiscal prudence, etc. One must not forget the fact that we do import 65,000 crores worth of edible oil. We have to import coal and oil. 80% of our energy is imported. We don't have enough oil and gas in this country. Yeah. So you have to spend the money on that. And what my friend was talking about, the outlays are there. You know, we as a government also have an outcome budget. So we say, well, we spend 100 rupees, here's the outcome of it. And don't please forget, all the money that we allocate, it's not that the 50 ministers of the government of India are writing checks. We give that money to states. We give it to the agencies to implement. If there is a delay in spending, if there is a loophole in leakages, it can't just be, you know, from the panchayat to the block to the district to the state and then to the government of India level. So all the allocations that are being made, I take the responsibility of being, you know, as a member of the government, well, we could have done better. But it's not that when you give money to a state government or to NREGA or to midday meal program or to
that you're controlling necessarily at every stage.
It's not possible because it's a federal structure.
Adi, then Kirit, and then I want to get Randeep Singh now.
I'll just come in. Sachin rightly mentioned we import a huge amount of edible oil. We are the largest importer in the world of edible oil.
And gold.
And gold too. But we made a very big mistake, say, in edible oil. We brought in import duties to zero. Indonesia and Malaysia, the biggest exporters, put export duties. So it didn't help bring our inflation down. We just transferred wealth to these countries. We have suggested to the government, put a 10% import duty on crude edible oil, 20% on refined edible oil. India's production will grow, Indian farmers will do better. So we must have intelligent ways of taxation. This is about 5,000 crores we are throwing away by not taxing import of edible.
So that's an important point, intelligence way of taxation. Kirit Parekh, you said it's a non-issue, the surcharge. But what a lot of people feel upset is about two things. One, the hypocrisy that Mr. Trivedi referred to. The other is perceived inefficiency of expenditure.
Yeah, I mean, let me first, talk about this import of coal. One can understand we are importing oil because we don't have domestic reserves of oil or resources of oil.
Yeah.
But coal, we have enough reserves to produce the coal we need, and yet we are importing 100 million tons of coal we imported last year. Yeah. And the 12th plan projects that we'll be importing 200 million tons of coal in the last year of the 12th plan. And I think this budget did not do anything excepting that we will have PPP with Coal India. Now, Coal India is already today outsourcing many of its activities to private sector. Now, as long as Coal India's monopoly is continuing, there is no way any PPP would work. What the government or what the finance minister should have announced is that we are going to denationalize coal, but he didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that we are going to do that. I completely agree that we are wasting so much of money by bad policies like the tax.
What about political donations? You didn't address. What about political donations?
The political donations are necessary in some sense if you don't have a finance by the state.
Yeah.
So we should have state finance certainly, and make political donations legal. And once you make it legal and transparent, then I mean, you know.
Okay, before I get Randeep, when you said we are looting the system, who's the we? You mean the political establishment, the
First
political
of all,
system?
I made it very clear that your Gangotri needs to clean up.
Yeah.
And you cannot have partnership in business. And we just cannot accept cash as donation. And we don't need money all throughout the year. We don't need. If during the election, and very honestly, it has become a havas. And I have fought an election. You don't need such a big amount of money. You just don't need it. And on when we were talking about unless and until, now who's financing your elections? Your elections today, I'm sorry, it's not the corporate world, because corporate world doesn't have that kind of money, and they do not have that kind of black money. It is financed by mafias. And I am telling you with a lot of responsibility. You go to Vora committee report, and it says that mafias have taken over this country. 77% of your population, 20 rupees a day, and you are talking about inclusive growth, health for all, education for all. What is this? Is it the advertisement of Hammam soap or what? It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Time has come, and thanks to technology, thanks to Google, thanks to the access we can have with information, we have to put a stop, and the political system all combined together. All, if you see the list of the donations, parties are rich, including, and I'm not on politics, including the left, and what they do, they put it into bonds, they put it into property, they put it into equity, and the money they earn, they don't pay tax on this. Okay. So, in conclusion, what I will say, today it is better for somebody to start a political party as a business rather than start as a business
Okay, now that's the kind of cynicism that I think you can hear from the applause strikes a chord. One of the things we haven't discussed is agricultural income. Now it is completely
I just conclude that you had cess for oil for last 3 decades. What has happened to that cess money?
I'm going to come back to that, but Randeep Singh Nabha, as an MLA here from Punjab, there is the image of the Punjab farmer. Now you come from an agricultural family, but you're also in politics, so you're wearing both of those hats. Now there is the image of the Punjab farmer as the SUV driving, plush, palatial gharwala farmer. I've read interviews of you and your family where you actually said as a joke that there are more SUVs in Punjab than there are people. Now the question is that when somebody looks at, let's say, you or your family, we're making you the Balika Bakra here. If somebody looks at you or your family and they say that, hang on, this is not a poor farmer, he doesn't come from a poor family, he comes from a rich, flourishing agricultural family of Punjab. And on that agricultural income, no tax is paid. They're all driving Audis and cars that none of us can afford.
Thanks for having me, Bakra. And I think, as a farmer, I personally feel, because it's the case of illiterate amongst illiterates. But as a farmer,
you see yourself as a farmer?
Yeah, I've been fortunate being born to this household, but farming is no longer conducive in today's world. Because unfortunately after the farming segment, the Land Ceiling Act came in. So we have marginal land holdings, whether it's in the country or whether it's in my state. Now the question comes, you addressed 2 questions, with farming on one side and owning SUVs on the second side, which I happen to be the Balika Bakra, as you suggested.
It's okay, I own an SUV too.
So I know
in the interest of disclosure, I have to say I own one.
The basic crux, what I'm telling you, farming community should not be taxed.
Petrol driven.
Well, mine are diesel, thank you. Well, farming community in today, it doesn't need to be taxed for the sole reason, because when you, to 1 acre of land, when you grow paddy, The costing, I have the figures with me. To grow wheat tentatively costs about 9,000 rupees an acre. That is inputs like labor, seed, and khad, medicine, all this stuff. And when you take paddy, it costs about 10,000. So averagely, we get what the MSP, the Government of India offers is 1,100 tentatively.
Yeah.
So farmer approximately makes about 28 to 29,000 rupees. And he's also dependent on the gods and the weather.
But then how does the Punjab farmer, how do so many Punjab farmers own SUVs?
The problem is that farmer in Punjab is selling his land and purchasing SUVs. That is the most unfortunate part, and that's why you see Punjab, earlier Punjab contributed 70% to the national food grain pool, and we comprise of only 2% of the land width of the country's land. But today, because our entire land pool is being commercialized, so Punjabis are flaunting their wealth by just buying SUVs and buying fancy cars.
So you're saying actually itna paisa nahi hai gaadi kharid rahe.
That's true. I'm telling you that's a true fact.
Okay, before I get Sachin on this.
Farmers are in debt, huge debts.
Agricultural income. He's actually saying, hang on, it's not even a conducive sector. Nitin, you want to come in with a comment there?